He's going to give us a tour of the Holy Lands, past and present, which I think will be very interesting for people such as me who have never been there. It'll be a chance to see what the Holy Lands are now and what they were in the past. So I'll give it over to Scotty.
Thank you. So when I come here to preach on Sundays, you never clap. Why is that?
We had started.
It's a new thing, right? A new thing. A new thing. I'll be sure and tell Glenn that you clapped for me and not him. Okay?
Assistant has to live with you. We don't want your pet.
That's true. That's true. You know, that's true. Susan and I went to the Holy Lands back in 2007. So it's been a while since I've been there, and so this was a good refresher for me to kind of remember the trip and the things we did and the people we were with, and it was a really good time. We went with the convent of St. Helena's before they moved to North Augusta. They used to be here over in the Augusta area. And there were some other people that weren't connected in any way with the convent, but several of us were. Sissy and Joe Bowden were with us, and it was a really, really fun trip with the people, but especially for what we got to see and do. And before we went, Hezbollah was sending rockets into Israel, into the Galilee, and then they were coming in from the Gaza Strip. I don't know if you know anything about the geography, but it's coming in from two ends. They didn't come in from Jordan because that was not an area that would be sending rockets, and they were firing nearly 1,300 rockets and mortars into Israel. So that's a lot of stuff going on. And people were saying to us, well, aren't you afraid to go? And I kept on hedging on the answer because really I wasn't afraid. But I didn't know why. As we go on, you'll find out why. And so I'm just going to hold that out for you. Now, as an aside, we all flew over pretty much together. We all got on a plane and flew to France, and then from France we flew to Amman, Jordan. That might seem sort of a strange thing, but the Holy Land is a whole lot more than just Israel. Good parts of Jordan are considered Holy Land. Parts of Syria are Holy Land. Pretty much the whole Sinai Peninsula, which is part of Egypt right now is, and of course some parts in the Nile area in Egypt considered the Holy Land. So, and I think even parts of Lebanon might be considered part of the Holy Land. So, it's a big area, but we only went to a small portion of it. And on the plane, I had the good fortune to sit next to Typhoid Mary. She was a lovely lady, but she was sick as a dog when she was going over. And ironically, most of the people, not all, but most of the people in our pilgrimage came down with whatever she brought with her. So it was quite an experience of on the buses, and it was just, issues everywhere. And with that, I am now going to begin the trip, and I'm going to take you along the way. We flew into Amman, Jordan, and I'm going to use a little green thing like up here. And Amman, Jordan is somewhere right up in here. And we flew into Jordan because our trip was beginning with Jordan, that part of the Holy Land. And as soon as we landed, we got on a bus and we came all the way down here to Madaba. And that's where we stayed. Stayed in a place in Madaba. And we began our experience with the Holy Land in Madaba. Later on, after on the second day, and I'll show you where we're going from Madaba, we came up here, and this is what they consider Mount Sinai. The Memorial Church of Moses is there. And then from there, we traveled up this road here, all the way up through this town and everything. And way over here is the baptismal place of Jesus. In the Bible, he's baptized on the east side of the Jordan River. And the east side of the Jordan River is Jordan, in the country of Jordan. The Israelis have a place just on the other side that they consider to be the baptismal place, but I guess they had to have one if Jordan was going to have one. All right. So anyway, our first place to go visit is in Madaba, is St. George's Greek Orthodox Church. It was built in 1884 AD, so it's relatively new. But it was also built on top of older churches. One was a Byzantine church, the remains of 560 AD, and the floor in the new church is actually a mosaic floor with a map of what they call the Holy Land, or Jerusalem. And so that's an old floor that's there. And then we left the church and we got on a bus and we went to Mount Nebo, and this is the Memorial Church, Moses Memorial Church. The first church that was there was built in the 4th century by Egyptian monks and redeveloped into a basilica in the 5th century. So that's the 300s, 400s. I don't know if some of this is newer and most of it is older, I think. This is what they call Moses' the brazen serpent. And you'll see the serpent winding around the cross. It's a very large thing, and it's the symbol for Mount Nebo, which is where Moses looked upon the future Holy Land. And it's the brazen serpent in the Bible. And I think the brazen serpent saved the Israelites from the plague. From there, this is a mosaic that's on the floor in that old church, old newish church. And it dates back from 530 AD. And you can see that it's pretty well preserved. This is the Diaconicon Baptistry. I had to read that carefully. And that was actually built in 531 AD. After we left the church and viewed the Holy Land, it was kind of hazy and couldn't see a whole lot. This guy here, he's in the La Storia Tourism Complex that's connected with Mount Nebo. There's a museum in there, and they are building a 100-foot-long mosaic of King's Highway. And this guy is working on it. And we, as visitors, got to actually place a little piece of the mosaic in that thing. And anybody who goes to that museum gets to do that, which is kind of a neat thing. Any questions? We next, this is the statue of the faces of Moses looking upon the Promised Land. It's a fairly contemporary statue, as you can see. From there, we go to Jesus' baptismal place in the Jordan River. It's on the Jordan side, as I mentioned, versus the Israeli side. The location, the biblical description of Bethany beyond or across the Jordan. the archaeological findings, there was a Byzantine church here from 518 AD, and there's marble steps to the river that were built in 570 AD. And this is a picture of the Jordan River. And it's not very far from where the Dead Sea is. Looks pretty small, doesn't it? It's very dirty. It's just a trickle. Based on the time of Jesus, it was a fairly good-sized river at that time. It's now just a trickle. If you think about the Colorado River going into Mexico, if it even goes into Mexico anymore, this is the same thing that's happening to the Jordan River. All along the Jordan River in the West Bank and also on the Jordan side, they are using the water for irrigation. So very little of this water comes down to where Jesus was baptized and into the Dead Sea. One of the things that we were allowed to do, and you've heard Cindy mention this many a time about how there's water from the Jordan River in the baptismal water. Well, if any of your children or grandchildren were baptized, it was dirty water. I still actually have my bottle of water, and it's still intact. It hasn't dried out. I have made sure that top is screwed on there real tight. And at the bottom is a whole bunch of sediment. So you've got a whole lot of stuff in the water to make it dirty that's just running down there all the time. And of course, this is the desert. But anyway, that's my lovely bride there and a fellow from Aiken who are scooping up some water. They have a little platform there. And people actually go in the water and get baptized there. I'm not sure I'd want to do that, but hey.
Ray got baptized.
Did you?
Yeah.
And you survived. All right. All right. I know, let me tell you about that. This is the baptismal font that's right there at that site. I guess this is a fairly new construction. I don't know how new, but in biblical times, it's probably very new. You can see Joe and Sissy in the background, and the water looks kind of green, and I'm not sure if that's just reflection, though. But anyway, we renewed our baptismal vows around that font. And right nearby is St. John the Baptist Greek Orthodox Church. This church was built in 2003. So this is a brand new church for the Holy Land. It was done by a rich tycoon from Greece. And it's built on the Byzantine ruins. And interestingly enough, right at the door to this building is this. And they claim, there's a little sticker on this, and they claim that these are the bones of John the Baptist. So, real or not, I have no idea. But hey, why not? Okay, so from there, we go back to Madaba because we need to spend the night. And on the way, we see some places where indigenous people are living in the Transjordan area. These are Bedouins. They're semi-nomadic people of the desert, and they've been around for 4,000 to 7,000 years in this area. They've been breeding camels, horses, sheep, and growing date palms and other kinds of crops. I don't see any crops there, but I think they had some sheep or something nearby. But you can see, the kind of, the area, it's just barren pretty much. There's a little bit of green there. From there, we get back into Madaba, and this is a local shop that's in there. You see these all over the place selling fresh fruits and vegetables and whatnot, and then here's a couple of ladies that were living there in Madaba. Madaba, by the way, of course, is a Muslim town because we are in Jordan, and you can see the various kind of wear that they have on. And then the men often wear a red and white checkered headdress called, and I hope I'm saying this right, kifiyah. And that was for showing your Palestinian sympathies. And here's one of the people there wearing one of those. A very friendly local. All right, so from here we leave Madaba and we're going to go up the Jordan Valley. And let me get my thing here. There's Amman right down here, and we're going to come up here to a place called Jerish. And I'm gonna zoom in, hopefully.
How did you travel from there?
Buses. We were all on buses. Just one bus, actually. There were not many of us. I don't know why that thing, there we go. But anyway, we go to Jerish, and from there we go up here. Oops, sorry. Hey, Joe. We come up to a place called Qais, right up here. But in the biblical days, that was called Gadar, excuse me. And we'll be mentioning that in just a minute. So anyway, let's move on from there. All right, in Jerish. Jerish is actually a Greco-Roman ruins, and it's probably the best preserved Roman provincial town in the world. It was hidden for centuries because of a sandstorms that buried it, and it was excavated and restored over the past 70 years, and they're still working on it. And this is one of two theaters, and we sat in these seats because there's a north and a south one, and this one sat 3,000 spectators. Mind you, we didn't fill it up. There was only about 30 of us. And we could hear very clearly the voices spoken when they were way down in the arena area, which was quite remarkable. And this is the arena area, and these are locals that were doing a reenactment of Roman soldiers. I assume that's what Roman soldiers looked like. All right, this is a paved and colonnaded street. You can see the pavement right down in here, and these are the columns that went on the side of the street. So it was rather an impressive sight during the Roman period. And then here, there were a lot of vast public squares and plazas. This one is the sanctuary of Zeus. The one before it was the Cardo Maximus. And then they had some hilltop temples. This one's the sanctuary of Artemis. And then they had city walls that were pierced with towers and tunnels and gates and everything like this. And this is one of the tunnels in the wall. And then the local cuisine, and we had this everywhere, and you can see down here, this is pita. These are probably this big around. I mean, they were enormous pitas, and of course you could tear them up and eat them with hummus. And the hummus was made fresh all the time wherever we went. And everywhere in Jordan and the Holy Land, you could run into somebody making pita. From there, we went to Garda, Jordan, which is now called Qais. This is the place where Jesus stampeded pigs into the Sea of Galilee. And that's written up in Matthew 28 through 34. I'm not going to read you the quote from that, but it's a Greco-Roman city, and it's part of the Middle Eastern Decapolis, or 10 cities. Garda means stronghold. Qais is Arabic for junction or border station, and it really is right near the border with Israel and Jordan. And it overlooks the Sea of Galilee, as well as the Golan Heights, which it was part of Syria and now is part of Israel. At least they say it is. And then you can overlook the Jordan Valley in one direction. This is a local horse for riding. By the way, I took most of these pictures, not all of them, but most of them. And I have treated them I've developed them in such a way that I'm trying to create them to look like paintings, but they're really photographs. So you like them or no, it's okay with me. This is the Roman ruins, and you're looking at the Golan Heights in the background there. This was part of where Jesus was with the pigs, the problem with the pigs. He sent evil demons into the pigs and sent them all into the Sea of Galilee. And then there's Joe sitting in one of the theaters there. And, I'd asked him, if he minded if I took his picture while he was there. And he said, oh, no, I'm probably one of the most photographed things around here. And I said to him, well, I did come to take pictures of ancient ruins. That's probably the only time I've ever seen Joe speechless. He was bent over laughing. He enjoyed that, and he reminds me of that often. So from here, from Gadar, we crossed the border from Jordan into Israel. It's nighttime. We have to change our tour guides because the Jordanian tour guides cannot go into Israel. We had to pick up new tour guides on our bus when we went into Israel. Fortunately, our bus driver was able to go with us. There are only 3 crossings of the Jordan River. One is at the very bottom at the Gulf of Aqaba. One is right near Jericho, and then there's this one up near Gadara and just south of the Sea of Galilee. And this one's called Sheikh Hussein Bridge. They checked every one of us. We had to get off the bus. Our baggage was checked. Under the bus was checked, and it took a long, long time to get in there, longer than any of us would like. And then we went to our Galilean home base, which was a kibbutz, and Naf Genesar. It's the first hotel kibbutz in Israel. It's been around a while. So we had nice hotel rooms. Meal buffet was buffet style, and a very large dining hall with lots of people from everywhere in the world. So that was kind of quite an experience. So once we got settled, the next day we are heading for 3 different locations near the Sea of Galilee, in the Galilee region. One is Mount Tabor, the other is Nazareth, and the other is Cana of Galilee. And here's the map. And we were staying right up in here somewhere. This is Tiberias here. And then Mount Tabor is right down here. And from there, we went over to Nazareth, which I believe is right there. And then we traveled up here to this place, which is Kfar Kana. That was Cana. You can see they kind of, Kana is Cana, but it's now a Muslim name. Most of this area in some are Christian and some are, most of them are actually Muslim now. It used to be mostly Christian Palestinians, and over time it's now become mostly Muslim Palestinians. And so the first place we go is Mount Tabor, and this is what Mount Tabor looks. It's a mountain. And if you look on top, there's some buildings, and we will see those in just a minute. Mount Tabor stands above the Jezreel Valley in southern Galilee. The buses park way down here at the base, and you get taxis that take you on winding roads all the way to the top. Because buses cannot, they just cannot traverse the twisty, windy roads. And this was our first of many encounters with pilgrims from Nigeria, Africa. Half the population in Nigeria is Anglican, Christian, and a good many of those are Anglican. Well, 18% of the Christian, I guess, is Anglican, but they are the largest denomination of Christians there. And the whole place, and they were all in very colorful garbs. It was really quite impressive to see these people there. But it's a male-dominated territory, and the males are rather pushy, and they aren't particularly caring of the environment. They were throwing their trash everywhere. I had to pick up some of it myself. Now, we get, by the 6th century, several Christian churches were built up here and over the centuries, and they occupied this spot, later to be destroyed by the Persians, and then rebuilt in the 11th century by the Crusaders, and then destroyed again by the Muslims, who conquested it again in 1187. So you can see there's church on church on church on church with lots of destruction. There's a church here today, and the Church of the Transfiguration was built by the Franciscans in 1924. This is the outside, or the inside of that. You can see the Transfiguration mosaic above the altar there. Quite a nice thing, and it's all curved, and this church is built on top of a much older church, and underneath I'll show you the other church. This is a picture of Moses and the Ten Commandments, a fresco that's painted on wet plaster. This is the Byzantine church that was ruined, and it's below the high altar that I just showed you. And this is where we worshiped. And you'll notice it's a curved wall again also. And right up here on the left side over here, I will show you the next picture is a nice mosaic of the Transfiguration, the birth of Jesus. From Mount Tabor, we go to Nazareth, where Jesus grew up. Nazareth is the largest Palestinian Arab city inside of modern Israel. The Palestinians were the first, by the way, the first non-Jewish Christians. Most people don't realize the importance of the Palestinians in the development of the Christian church shortly after Jesus was crucified. Not all Palestinians in Israel are Muslims. About 30% of them are Christians, which is down from about 80% in 1948. This is a picture of a little boy, probably a grown man now. This is Christ Episcopal Church. It was built for Palestinian Christians and Muslim children, which are minority groups in Israel. It was founded in 1851 by the Church Mission Society, and owned by the Diocese of Jerusalem. Student population is about 1,200 and goes from grades K through 12. 85% of the student body is Muslim. This is a picture of the synagogue church. They call it that. It's a Catholic Greek church built by crusaders in the heart of the old market of Nazareth, built on the ruins of an ancient Nazarene synagogue where Jesus studied, prayed, and began his teaching in Nazareth. So it's really quite significant, and this part is quite old. This is an unknown, I don't know where this picture is in the church or whereabouts it is, but it's a fresco of Jesus and Mary. I liked it, so I showed it to you. This is the Basilica of the Annunciation in Nazareth. This is the place where the angel Gabriel visited Mary to deliver the invitation for her to bear God's Son. It's also the largest Christian church in the Middle East. And it was built in 1950 through the 60s. And it was where an early Byzantine church was built. A later Crusader church sat on top of that, and then the Franciscan church. So it's been built upon again, and this is pretty typical of the Holy Land. Church on church on church, because of the who owned the territory and all the politics involved. Pope John the 23rd had archaeologists explore before construction of this church, and they discovered a grotto underneath the old churches with the words Hail Mary inscribed on it in Latin. And it's believed to be the home of Mary. The Church of the Annunciation was built around that grotto, leaving it open to the lower section. This is the high altar in that basilica. This is a modern sculpture and painting of the Virgin Mary. It's quite large, actually. And this is the grotto with worship space, home of Mary, and it was probably a cave. And it's possibly the home of Jesus, too. From Nazareth, we go to Cana, where Jesus turns water into wine at a wedding. There are two churches commemorating this event. One's Catholic and one's Greek Orthodox. Again, Cana is an Arab town with Muslims and Christians in it. Present-day name, Kafar Khana. The Catholic wedding church was built in 1881. Expanded from 1897 to 1905 and built on top of a 4th century synagogue. This is the interior of the wedding church. This is the Catholic one. And you can see up by the altar, I hope you can see anyway. Let me enlarge this if I can. You can see right up here on the altar, right here, these things on both sides, those are urns that represent the water that Jesus turned into wine. Don't mistake that as being original urns. But that's, so that's the church, the Catholic Church. We did not go into the Greek church, but I was able to take a picture of the cross on top. I took lots of pictures of crosses on top of churches that you will see. I just really, really like that cross. And that completes that day. The next day, we go to three churches on holy sites. One is the Church of the Primacy of St. Peter, the Church of the Beatitudes, and the Church of Loaves and Fishes, also called the Church of Multiplication. Tabgha, let me go here. I learned how to use this. Whoops, I got it backwards. If I learn how to use this thing, I can get it. Right down here, right on the Sea of Galilee, right here this is the Church of the Primacy of St. Peter. Up here, and you can see it's a windy road getting up here. This is the Church of the Beatitudes. If you remember, Jesus sat them on the side of a hillside and taught them over, the Beatitudes over the Sea of Galilee. And then coming back down over here, this is the churches of Loaves and Fishes. Tabgha is on the northern shore of the Sea of Galilee, where Jesus made his fourth appearance after the resurrection, and where he multiplied the loaves and fishes. In the water down here somewhere, there are 7 springs which bring fish near the shore of the Sea of Galilee. Hence, that's why they're always fishing there, and Peter and all those people were fishing there. It's kind of an interesting place. This is the Church of the Primacy of St. Peter. It's a Franciscan church. It commemorates the fourth appearance of Christ appearing to his disciples after the resurrection. And it was named for Jesus reinstating Peter as head of the church. The Lord tells Peter 3 times, "Feed my sheep." And in response to Peter's threefold denial at the house of Caiaphas. So you've got a threefold denial, and then you have a threefold time when Peter says, "Yes, Lord, I love you. You know I love you." And Christ, he says that you're now head of the church. So this was Jesus' way of redeeming Peter. This spot was marked for this event as early as 381 AD, and a small church includes what's called the Table of the Lord, or Mensa Christi. And this is the Table of the Lord, or the Mensa Christi, right down here. It's rock. That's not the Table of the Lord, except for they put an altar in there. But this is inside that church. And it's on this outcropping of rock that it's believed that Jesus offered breakfast to the disciples and feeding them there. So I'm imagining while we're there, seeing Jesus and the disciples sitting around on these rocks. The rocks extend outside the church, by the way. So the church is built all around this, and that's what it's there for. The church, the original church, was destroyed in 1262 AD, and then the current Franciscan chapel was built in relatively new, 1933. This is an outdoor chapel. You don't actually worship in there because it's kind of hard to get to the altar and stuff inside the building, but they have an outdoor chapel here, and we worshiped at it, and we had communion. We worship actually in a lot of places that a lot of people, pilgrims who come here, don't get to do. And I think it was because of our connection with the tour group that took us around, which were Palestinian Christians. And they've been doing this like 40 years or more. And so they've been well connected. But we worshiped here. And then there was this bronze cross of Jesus offering Peter leadership of the church. I did it as a silhouette, and there behind there is the Sea of Galilee. And then there's another picture of Peter in a garden there. And while I was walking around just taking pictures of whatever, I ran into this guy. This is a hyrax. It's what they call a rock rabbit. And they like to live in rocky, craggy places. And what I want you to notice is what's behind them. Razor wire. Not just barbed wire, but razor wire. A lot of places we went in Israel is razor wire everywhere.
How big was that thing?
It's about this big around. You know, it's kind of like a small dog. Huh? Yeah, maybe a beaver.
Did it
Yeah.
growl at you?
Huh?
Did
No, just sat there and looked at me. I guess he figured, you know, hey, you're looking at me, I'm going to look at you. So from there we go to the Church of the Beatitudes. This is the spot where Jesus is believed to have delivered his Sermon on the Mount, overlooking the Sea of Galilee. This is a Byzantine church, was built here in the late 4th century. It's a rock cutout cistern, and the remains of the monastery can still be seen from that time. This present building was built in 1938. They did a lot of building in 1930s. And this is before Israel was Israel. So it's kind of interesting. It's a Neo-Byzantine style, and it was financed by none other than Benito Mussolini. I thought that was interesting. There are 8 sides to it. You can't quite see that, but there's one side. You know, there are 8 sides to this thing. And these represent the 8 Beatitudes. This is the altar that's inside the church. And then above it, looking up that round top, this is the inside looking straight up. This is a gold-gilded mosaic dome. I just love that design. And then this is a bas-relief of Mary inside there with the symbol of peace over there. I forgot what that is, olive branch. From there we go to the Church of the Loaves and Fishes. This is, it's a lot of their churches are fairly unimpressive, I think. They're just kind of like concrete brick things. But anyway, this is the Church of the Loaves and Fishes, or of the multiplication, as they like to call it. It's a Roman Catholic church on the site thought to be where Jesus fed the 5,000 with 2 loaves of bread and 5 fish. There was first a Byzantine church built in 350 AD. After that, a Byzantine church was built in 480 AD with mosaic floors, and we'll see several pictures later of those mosaics. That was destroyed in 614 by the Persians when they came in, the Muslims. The site was lost for 1,300 years. Excavation started in 1932. This present church was inaugurated in 1984 over the Byzantine structures. At the center of, just right in front of the altar, is this ancient mosaic from 480 AD. And it's of the loaves in the middle and the fish on the side. So, that, you know, you're looking at some really old stuff. And then there are some other mosaics. They like to have lots of wetland birds, plants, and even on the hyrax. And these are all Byzantine in their design. There's a bird with a hyrax. It's like a chalice. Excuse me. Now, from here we go back towards where we're staying in Galilee. And this one's Genosar. We're going to Genosar. Genosar is the Hebrew pronunciation of the name of the ancient town of Gennesaret. Now, I'm sure you've heard of that. This is what's called the Jesus boat. In the Bible it says, "So it was as the multitude pressed about Jesus to hear the word of God, that he stood by the lake Gennesaret," which is also the Sea of Galilee, "and saw two boats standing by the lake. But the fishermen had gone from them and were washing their nets. Then Jesus got into one of the boats, which was Simon's, and asked him to put out to a little from the land. And he sat down and taught the multitude from that boat." Radiocarbon of this boat was found in 1986 by fishermen from the Kibbutz Gennesar. And the radiocarbon dating puts it back around the time of Jesus. So, most likely the same kind of boat that Jesus and the apostles used. This is an illustration of what it would have looked like back in the day. This is all in a museum there. It's called the Yigal Alam Center. This outside the museum, this is a sculpture of a Galilean fish. This is a sculpture of a Galilean fisherman. And this is a present-day boat that takes tours on the Sea of Galilee. And we all got to go on one of them and boat around a little bit. Okay, so we are going to now leave Galilee, and we are going to travel down. This is Galilee way up here at the top, and we are going to come down this road here, all the way down to Jerusalem and then to Bethlehem. And this was kind of an eye-opening experience for me anyway. All along this whole journey down the road that we went, this is the river is right along this thing. So we were right beside the river a lot, and almost all the way along it were date plantations on both sides, both the Jordanian side and the Israeli side. So it's not just the Israelis that were doing this, but it's also the Jordanians. 40% of all dates are grown on the occupied West Bank along the Jordan. That's a lot of dates. This is what they look like. And so the water, the irrigated water comes from the Jordan River. By the way, it's very hazardous for workers to pick the grapes, or excuse me, pick the dates. And they're almost always Palestinians. The Israelis don't do it. It's kind of like in our own country, American citizens don't pick a lot of the fruits and vegetables that we eat. We import people to do that who are willing to do that. It's very tedious and hard work. They have to climb all the way up into these trees and cut the date things off, and so it's quite something. The other thing that was shocking and very relatively disturbing to all of us actually was the roads we traveled on. Israel has taken over the West Bank, and I'll talk more about this later. But they've taken over the West Bank and also in Israel, places in Israel. They are building superhighways. They're building turnpikes. And Palestinians are forbidden to use these turnpikes. They have to use, roads on the side like this road here on this, it's serpentine like this, and it crosses underneath this road, and it'll go on, it comes around and circles around, and It's traveling down probably to Jericho or somewhere, I don't know. But anyway, on the regular highways, the new highways, the Israelis can go on them, and there are gates to get on them, like there are toll booths to get on turnpikes. And at these toll booths are Israeli guards with Uzi automatic weapons, and they check to see if you're able to go on them or not. They're called forbidden roads, and some people refer to them as apartheid highways. They're forbidden all throughout the West Bank. And so, you know, like I say, the Palestinians have to use the twisty, windy roads that are sometimes very dangerous, and they disrupt all aspects of their life, the economy, health, education, and particularly safety, because of the effects of these have on their lives and family. And like I say, sometimes the alternative roads are very treacherous. And to justify this, the Israelis, they take privately owned Palestinian land for these roads. They argue that these roads would be beneficial to and benefit the Palestinian population. Well, they can't go on them. It's pretty much off limits. Some Palestinians can go on them if they have certain permits. Like our driver on the bus was a Palestinian, and he was able to do that because he had the proper permit to do so. Also, along the way, by the way, over to the left here, right over here, that's one of those forbidden highways. Right beside it is a Bedouin community. And there are hills all around Israel, especially around the eastern part of Israel, going towards Jordan. Lots and lots of hills. They're just big mounds of hills all over the place. And much of Jerusalem is hill after hill after hill, and just, you know, the old town is on one big hill. These Bedouins have been living in this part of the Holy Land for centuries, if not millennium, and the land has been handed down from sons to sons and family members. The Israelis are building settlements on top of these mounds, these places where Bedouins live. Now you'll see right here is a Bedouin home or something. Over here is another one. On top, right over here is one. There's something over here. These Bedouins probably been, like I say, been here for centuries. This is the road they travel on. The serpentine thing. You can see how treacherous it can be sometimes. Now, what the Israelis are doing in the West Bank is they are using bulldozers and equipment, and they're building these really quite nice highways, roads that connect to the forbidden highways to the top of these mounds where Bedouins live. And they're going to build an Israeli settlement all on top of these mounds. I have a question. What do you think these settlements look like on top of the Israeli settlements look like on top of these mounds? Anybody give me a guess? Speak up. Come on, be brave. Trailer park. Modular home, okay, yeah. Stack
Size, condo size, or tents.
tents, what?
If any of them live in caves, they're down.
The Bedouins?
The ones on top of that hill.
Oh, no.
No,
Okay, trailer park, modular home condos. Come on, anybody?
Tents.
Tents, oh yeah, somebody said tent, okay. Next picture shows you what it looks like. And you'll see right over here, they're in the process of building another one. There must be hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of these things built on top of all of these. Look in the background. These are all on the east side of Jerusalem in the West Bank. 2007. There are hundreds of them everywhere. It's illegal for the Israelis to do this according to the UN mandate. And these high-rise condos and other attached houses, and they're all connected to Israel proper via the forbidden highways. So that's part of the Holy Land now. So,
Photograph the picture by green. Is there green like that around us?
there is now.
Is your picture or?
Okay, think of, let's see, think of Las Vegas. It's built in a desert,
Has to have water on anything green.
pretty much. Pretty much.
So they're pumping water to water each of those plants.
Pretty much. All right. We're going to go now we're traveling up the road to go to Bethlehem. This is Jerusalem proper. It's actually a big thing. The over here is where I showed you from the. This is the forbidden highway here, where these the settlements are. They're all over the place in here. That light gray you're seeing is settlement. The brown, well, that's desert. Over here is Bethlehem. And we spent a couple of nights in Bethlehem, and then, of course, Bethlehem is the birthplace of Jesus. When we were going there, Joe was in contact with one of his government friends, and I'm thinking, Joe has a government friend. Well, that's interesting. Well, his government friend had told him, don't stay in Bethlehem overnight. It's the U.S. government is telling you not to stay in Bethlehem overnight. We're staying in Bethlehem overnight for 2 nights. Okay. So anyway, to get into Bethlehem, we had to go through this. Bethlehem is surrounded on almost all sides now by what's called a separation wall. Bethlehem is a Muslim majority community. It used to be a lot of Christians there, but the Muslims are kind of pressuring them out. And the Israelis, in order to protect themselves from terrorists, have decided that the best way to do that is to build these separation walls, these 30-foot concrete barriers with guard towers. And we had to go through a gate with a guard there, and we could maybe get through it or not, depending on the guard. We were told a story about a Catholic bishop refused on a tour bus, was refused. He got off and got in the face of the guard, and the guard was like a 19-year-old Israeli soldier, and he said, "You're not going in here." "Oh, yes, I am. You can shoot me if you want, but I'm going in." And they faced off, and eventually they went in. So I think, it's just one of those situations where the Israelis feel that they need to protect themselves with good reason, and Palestinians feel they need to push back for good reason.
So you got a machine gun, picture of the woman.
Yep. Yeah, women, everybody, including Israeli women. Women are in the army over there, and interesting thing, all people who are in the army, if they're off duty, they have to carry their Uzi rifle with them, even off duty. They don't have to wear their uniform, but they have to have that Uzi with them at all times, because you just never know. All right. Oh, and there are two places that are important to Christians. Both of them are walled off. Bethlehem, which is south of Jerusalem, and Bethany, which is east of Jerusalem, and they're just on the outskirts.
How far is Bethlehem from Jerusalem?
Oh, 10 miles maybe or less. Yeah. And Bethany is just outside of Jerusalem, which we will see in just a minute. So, we go to the Church of the Nativity. This was built around 330 AD by Roman Emperor Constantine with the help of his mother. She came over, and her name is St. Helena. She came over on behalf of the emperor, and she located this place and a few others in Jerusalem. And the birthplace is actually a cave or a grotto that's located underneath the church way back there. And if you look in the very back here, right here, well, I'll show it up close. You'll notice that there's this door here with these big blocks of rock here, but above it is an arch. Well, the arch is the original opening into the church, and this came later. And I'll show you what it is that came later. This is the door. It is 4 feet from here to here. This is, well, let me first tell you about the church. It's a Byzantine emperor, let's see, the original church in 330 AD was destroyed by Samaritan revolt in 529 AD, and then it was built again by a Byzantine emperor. That's the Byzantine. The other door was the Byzantine emperor church, and then and that was done in 565. This is the oldest functioning church in the world. And in 614 AD, the Persians, the Muslims, spared this church from destruction because the Magi paintings were on the outside of it, and the Magi were from Persia. So they left it. They didn't destroy this particular church. But in 1165, the Crusaders come in and they embellish the church, and they create this door. And they created it not so much for humility, although they call this the door of humility because you have to bend way over to get inside. Everybody does. But it was built, pardon me?
Except Joe.
No, he had to too. But anyway, they built it actually to repel looters on horse and camelback after the Crusades. They didn't want them coming in and, grabbing stuff. The church has been neglected and renovated several times since the hands of and is now in the hands of the Roman Catholic Church, the Armenian Church, and the Greek Orthodox Church. It gets very confusing when you get inside. This is the Greek Orthodox Church part, and they care for the grotto of the Nativity. This was where Jesus was born. Jesus was born in a cave, not in a wooden barn. Sorry, folks. There might have been some hay on the stone manger, but it was a cave. And this is now the site where the cave was. And if you, this thing in the middle right here, it's very ornate. You know, the Greeks like to ornate everything, and this is the actual. And what you do is you get down on your knees and you stick your hand down this hole, and you touch the rock that's underneath this. That's part of the cave where Jesus was born. This is a fresco of Jesus' birth, and it's right above where you put your hand down. It's above that altar there. And then this is the altar of St. Joseph's Chapel. St. Joseph, of course, being the father of Jesus. And it's right near the grotto's birth site. This is another altar, and this is the altar of St. Jerome. And it's in a different cave, part of the cave. St. Jerome, connected to the birth grotto, this cave of St. Jerome, Jerome was the translator of the Hebrew and Greek manuscripts into Latin, the language of the Roman Empire, to form what is called the Latin Vulgate. He did much of his translating work right there in a cave beside the Church of the Nativity in 382 to 405 AD. And he was later buried here, and today it is called Jerome's Grotto. His remains were carried, though, to Rome by the Crusaders in 1165. This is a bas-relief there of St. Jerome. And this is the cross on top of the Church of the Nativity. Again, a really unique cross. Okay, after we leave Bethlehem, we actually go to Jerusalem, and we're going to go see St. George's Anglican Cathedral there. And we're going to stay at the YMCA Three Arches Hotel. And it's right across the street from the King David Hotel, and it's just outside the old city walls of Old Jerusalem. And so this is St. George's Anglican Cathedral. It's the cathedral for the Episcopal Church in Jerusalem and the Middle East. It was built in 1899. Again, it's not quite as impressive as you might think. There's a little bit of it is, but not a lot of it. It's just sort of block. It's named after the patron saint of England, George. And George was a Roman soldier who was killed for refusing to recant his Christian faith and venerated since the Crusades. The cathedral has a mixed Arabic and English-speaking congregation. And while we were there for worship, and indeed, the dean that was there gave a sermon both in Arabic and in English. And by the way, he was a Palestinian. This is the interior of that church. Quite impressive, I think. This is a modern picture of Jesus as the light of the world. Again, a nice, good size painting. This is an old icon. It's called the Jesus Pantocrator, which means authority and power. The next three are stained glass art that's in front of windows that were in the St. George's School. There's a school attached to the cathedral, and we spent some time there. This is showing the coexistence of the Christians and Muslims in Jerusalem. I kind of liked it, would have thought they'd have a temple in there, but no. And then the next one is, this is a peace, not war. And I find this interesting because you got bombs here and buildings being blown up. You got the olive branch over here. You got the doves here. And then you have soaring stuff that I think is kind of interesting. It's just a really pretty and simple piece of art. This I have no idea what the meaning is, but I really like it. And this is the cross on top of the column in front of the cathedral. Again, another impressive cross. And I found this guy kind of interesting. This is a monk who's sitting inside there, and he's just, I don't know what he was doing. I don't know, maybe he was there to keep us rowdy people in line, especially Joe. All right. Now we are now heading to Bethany. Bethany is right over here on the right. It's a tiny little village. Bethlehem, you know, here's the Bethlehem Road. Bethlehem was down below, and Bethany is here. This is another walled Muslim community, city. People who want to go from Bethlehem to Bethany have to travel a terrible road to get there. We, of course, did not. We actually traveled down the Forbidden Highway, which was up this way, and came up this back way. This is Bethany, and this is the home of Martha, Mary, and their brother Lazarus. It plays significantly in the life of Jesus. He is there many, many times. The place is now called El Azariah, which is Palestinian, and it's a Palestinian, and it's in the West Bank. It's part of the Mount of Olives. The Mount of Olives, as you can see, right up here. Gethsemane is down here. This whole area here is called what's the Kidron Valley. I'm sure you can remember hearing about that in the Bible. And I'll show you how Jesus walks on Good Friday from Bethany down to the temple, messes around in the temple. All right. And Lazarus' burial is in here in Bethany, but it's owned by the Muslims, and so we didn't get to go there. But on our way into Bethany, this is what we saw. Right here is one of those shops that sell vegetables and fruit and whatnot and everything like that. And right next to it is their garbage pile. Everywhere we went in the Muslim world, and we've been to Turkey and stuff like that, and everywhere we go, they just throw their garbage everywhere. I have no idea about that, what that means, but they do that. This is the separation. This is one picture of the separation wall. It's interesting. They have a ladder to climb over it, but that's just painted on there. They use it also for a lot of political flyers and stuff like that. And they have a picture of Jerusalem up here. Oh, and a peace bird. This here, whoops, excuse me. This here is another, more flyers and stuff. It's not quite as decorated. This is on the other side. We're on this side. This is on the other side of that wall. This wall is immediately outside of the house where Martha, Mary, and Lazarus grew up. I mean, if you walk outside of that church door, you run right into this wall. And this wall was just put up willy-nilly. They didn't care where they put it. They just put it up. And it separates Muslim people on this side from their families on this side. This is the church of Martha, Mary, and Lazarus. This is, on the site of their home. This is a Franciscan church built in 1954 over the ruins of an earlier church that dates from to the 300s. Jesus spent much of his time there in the home, raised Lazarus from the dead there. And Jesus walked from Bethany to Jerusalem on Palm Sunday from this point. Pilgrims used to walk from this point. It's a 40-minute walk from this church all the way to Jerusalem. But you can't walk it anymore because of the separation wall. And so hence we had to get in the bus again and go all the way around about and get to the other side of the wall. Took a good bit of time. This is the altar inside the Church of Martha and Mary and Lazarus. From here, we leave this town and we go to the other side of the wall and we go to what's called the Church of the Pater Noster, the Lord's Prayer. The site of the church is over a 14th century basilica that commemorated the ascension of Jesus. It's assumed that he was ascended from this point. But the basilica was built by Constantine the Great under the direction of his mother, St. Helen. Again, this was another site that she ferreted out by talking to Palestinian Christians who had been coming to these places for worship for several centuries. So that's how she knew where things were. This church was destroyed by the Persians, again the Muslims, in 614 AD. And then it was rebuilt by Crusaders, and it was associated instead then with the teaching of the Lord's Prayer. I don't know why that got changed like that. And the church, the current church there began to be built in 1950, but it's never been completed. This is one of the porticos of that church, and it's lined with plaques of the Lord's Prayer all along this wall, and they're all in different languages. There are many different languages, and each one of those is a different language from a different country where Christians worship. This is a monk that was stationed inside there. Again, I think he was there to keep us quiet. But he just sort of was there, in that position, silent. This is one of the plaques. This is the Lord's Prayer in English. And this is the prayer of Lord's Prayer in Coptic. Coptic is the language of one of the earliest Christian denominations located in modern-day Egypt. So, we're up here. This is the Pater Noster right now. Over here was where Martha, Mary's, and Lazarus' home. So this is the Pater Noster. And we walked this serpentine walk down here, which is a church here, and the Garden of Gethsemane is right here. But Jesus would have walked from the home down this route all the way over here to the Temple Mount. And he would have entered the Temple Mount. The temple back then was over here. And he would have gone through one of the gates over here. But anyway, so that's where we walked. And this is the church right outside the Garden of Gethsemane. This is the Church of All Nations. It's a Basilica of Agony. It's a Roman Catholic church, and it was built in 1924 right next to the Garden of Gethsemane. The garden is right over here. And the trees in here are olive trees, and I'll show you these olive trees momentarily. Inside the church, this is the bedrock. This is kind of like when we were up in Galilee. Jesus sat on a bunch of rocks to feed. Well, this is probably the rocks that he was there praying with his disciples. when he was sweating blood and when Peter and all of them fell asleep and stuff. So this was part of the, I'm sure there's rock all over the place, but this is inside the church here. This is an olive tree. And that olive tree is anywhere from 800 to 900 years old. And it might have been planted by one of the Crusaders. Yes? Yeah, that might be. Well, it could very well be. But they're really old. And obviously, you know, I don't know if the olives are any good on them or not, but in the garden, those trees have been there for eons. And then, when inside, you can look through a window, and this is what you see. This is the Muslim Dome of the Rock. And the rock here is where the Jewish temple used to be. And it was destroyed in 70 AD by the Romans. So when the Muslims came in 614, all they found was a bunch of rocks. And supposedly, Muhammad ascended to heaven from this location. And so you got the Dome of the Rock there. And that was built in 691 AD. So you're seeing a mix of new and old. When old is still viable, they keep it. And when it has been destroyed and built over and over and over again, they build new. So our next day in Jerusalem is we go to the Wailing Wall. Now this is a picture of modern day Jerusalem, old Jerusalem I should say. And this green out here is just sort of area that there's nothing really kind of built on it. And this right here is a wall all the way around it. It's an old wall, and I'll tell you about that in a while. But anyway, there are 4 quarters to Old Jerusalem. This is the Muslim quarter right here. This is included. This is where the Dome of the Rock is, and Al-Aqsa Mosque is over here. So they got 2 things on top. And over here is the Christian quarter, and there's the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. This is the Armenian quarter, and again, Armenians also were one of the early Christians. And then, of course, the Jewish quarter over here. And the first thing we go to is the Wailing Wall, or the Western Wall, which is right here. And it's part of this wall that goes all around here. The wall doesn't go up over, like this wall goes up above the city level. This one is actually a retaining wall. And it's a retaining wall for the Holy Mount. And it's built on two different levels, and we'll see that in a minute. The second temple was built right in here, and it was destroyed again in 70 AD. The lower part of the wall, let me go here. The lower part of the wall right here, that dates from about 350 BC. Or as they like to say, before the Common Era, BE, BE. And this was part of Herod the Great, added to the top of it right here around 20 BC. So you got 2 layers to the wall, lower and upper. And in the pictures you'll see that. And it became a pilgrim site right here. This is where you come in. You come down over in here. And it becomes a pilgrim site for the Jews after the temple was destroyed. nearly 2,000 years ago. Jews come here 3 times a day to pray. This character was sitting right here at our entryway. We came in, I think, down this way and around here, and he happened to be sitting there. And given the chance, anybody who looks interesting, I'm going to take their picture. And so I did, and I'm grateful for it. And a dear friend of ours who no longer is with us, but he took this picture and painted him. So anyway, the Jews come here 3 times a day, and they'll pray, and sometimes they'll weep when they're praying, and so it's called the Wailing Wall. And the Jews consider this wall to be the most sacred place in the world for them, because it's the closest they can get to where the temple was. They're not allowed up on top. That's a Muslim territory. And let me tell you, you don't mix the two. This western wall helps support the Dome of the Rock and the Al-Aqsa Mosque. And so this wall is contested. That wall that I showed you is contested by the Jews and the Muslims alike. And I think while we were there, they were having some kerfuffle over it. I think that, if I'm not mistaken, I think the Jewish people state is doing excavations underneath the mound for some archaeological digs, and we saw some Roman ruins and stuff like that, which are near and under the Al-Aqsa Mosque. And let me tell you, the Muslims aren't none too happy about that. Prayers are often written by people, and they will stuff them in the wall, in the cracks and crevices in the wall. And so you can see, wherever there's a little area, they will stuff those in the wall. And interestingly enough, so they have cleaners that come in and clean those cracks out to take out all the prayers and things after they've been in there a while. And they are cremated, and then the ashes are scattered on the Mount of Olives, which I think is kind of a neat thing to do. And the men and women worship separately. And here's a picture of Joe stuffing a prayer in the wall. I think we all did. I don't know. I'm going to quick run back to a picture, and I'm going to enlarge this so you can see, because this is an important point. And this is a Jewish thing. The men all went to the wall on this side, and the women on this side. Notice the size difference. Thought that was interesting too. Okay. After we go from the western wall, we are going to go over to what's called Mount Zion. Mount Zion is right at the edge of Old City, Jerusalem, Old Town Jerusalem. Used to actually be part of the original Old Town of Jerusalem. It no longer is because of the way the wall has been built. And Mount Zion is actually the highest point in ancient Jerusalem. Again, you got all these hills and stuff. And Old Jerusalem falls off. There's a Kidron Valley that Jesus walks through from Bethany up into Jerusalem. Well, this is in Mount Zion. And this particular place is, several events happen here. The Last Supper with Jesus and his disciples. The coming of the Holy Spirit comes to the disciples in the upper room. Jesus, before goes before the high priest Caiaphas in this location in Mount Zion, and Peter's denial takes place in Mount Zion. And the Council of Jerusalem around 50 AD, in which the early church debated the status of converted Gentiles, takes place in this area. And this is the upper room, also called the cenacle, which means dining room in Latin. There's strong evidence this is an authentic place of the upper room. There are 4 floors. There's a Roman room at the bottom with a Greco-Christian graffiti on it. There's a Byzantine church above that, a Crusader church above that, and this present church on top. It's a location of the first ever Christian church. So this is not the first Christian church, but the one at the bottom, I guess, is. And it was built soon after the crucifixion. This place was converted into a Jewish Christian synagogue. In the 300 ADs, recognized as the place of the Last Supper, again through St. Helena. This room was built by, this particular room was built by the Crusaders in the 1100s with Gothic columns. And then it became a Muslim mosque in 1524, and there's a prayer niche in the wall put in there over here by them. And let's see, it's the site of Jesus appearing to the apostles after the resurrection. And this is also where they elected Matthias to replace Judas. It all took place in the upper room. It's obviously a special place for them. Then we go on to this place. This is the church of Peter in Gallicantu. It's a Roman Catholic church, and it's on the slope of Mount Zion. You can see it. It's going to drop off right here. I mean, this whole thing is on multi-levels on the side, and you'll see why. It's dedicated to Peter's denial of Jesus when the cock crowed twice. Gallicantu means cockcrow in Latin. Byzantine shrine dedicated to Peter was erected in 457 AD. It was destroyed by the Muslims in 1010. A mosaic floor survives in the new church. And the chapel was rebuilt by Crusaders in 1102 AD and given its present name. Jerusalem fell to the Muslims in 1187, and the church fell into ruins. I don't know that they destroyed anything, but it fell into ruins. And this present-day church was built in 1931. Again, early 30s. There's something going on there. I got to go look that up. Above the present altar, you'll see where Jesus, I'm going to blow this up. You can see this is the picture of a bound Jesus being questioned by Caiaphas in his palace. And at the base of this church are a succession of caves from the Second Temple period, from 500 BC to 70 AD. This was the site of Caiaphas's palace, and where Jesus likely was imprisoned, possibly in a cistern. Okay, this cistern was a place where they kept water, and they would have, lowered a bucket down there and stuff like that. And so Jesus was probably lowered with ropes under his 2 arms down to the bottom here. And he probably was maybe up to his neck in water when he spent the whole night there. The only access to this was this shaft. There are Byzantine crosses built right in here. They're talking about this plaque right here. Well, there's a Byzantine cross built in here and on the sides over here, which would have been from the 500 ADs. So this is pretty clearly a significant place to the church. This here is the cross on top of this church. This is a black cross with a rooster on it. And this symbolizes Peter denying Jesus. Black cross, you know, and then the golden. I have no idea what this means. The crow. Anyway, nice bird effect. And then also on the steeple is this pretty gold cross on top of this. And outside there's this, it's a bas relief, which is a flat surfaced and raised sculpture. And this says, after the supper, Jesus left the upper room with his disciples and crossed the Kidron Valley. He's heading to Gethsemane. And then the second one here is Jesus being brought back up the steps during the Holy Week ordeal, and he's heading to Caiaphas's palace for trial. So that's kind of a significant thing. Then the last part of this is this. These are the steps. These are the original steps that Jesus probably took when he walked down to Gethsemane, to the Garden of Gethsemane, and then also when he was taken back up in captivity to Caiaphas's temple. And we got to come down here and sit quietly on these steps and around them and walk around. And I'll tell you what, it was a very emotional experience because Jesus trod on those rocks. The next day, we are in Jerusalem, in Old Jerusalem proper, and we are going to do the Stations of the Cross. We'll end up in the Holy Sepulchre. We'll go to the Antonini Fortress and the Pool of Bethsaida. And then we're going to do some shopping in the Old City. So we're going to get to see some really interesting stuff here. This is a picture, I'm going to kind of make this, enlarge this a little bit. There's a little travel here going on. Over here is the Garden of Gethsemane. Up here is the upper room. Jesus would have gone down this way and through the Kidron Valley up to the Garden of Gethsemane, which is halfway up the Mount of Olives. This is where he was captured, and he was taken back over here to Caiaphas's residence, his palace. And he had his first trial there before the Sanhedrin. And then Jesus was also put in prison there, you know, in that cistern. And then he was tried again before the Sanhedrin. And he was taken then to Pontius over here. And then he was taken to Pontius Pilate, which was probably over in this area here. This, again, is the Holy Mount, the Holy Temple Mount. Temple would have been here. This is the Dome of Rock here, and the other mosque over here. So he was over here before Pilate. And then Herod went to Herod Antipas over to his place. Herod sent him back over here to Pontius Pilate, and Pilate finally hands him over to over to be scourged at the fortress of Antonini, which is in here. And And then he goes to Golgotha, which is Calvary here. And that's just outside the old city walls. It's now inside the city, the newer city walls, which are from the 1500s. So we are going to do the Stations of the Cross. I know in Holy Week, a lot of us do the Stations of the Cross. Oops, I gotta back this down. Okay, here's the Holy Mount over here. The temple is, the Dome of the Rock is here. This is over here where Jesus would have been before Herod. Not Herod, excuse me. This is where he was condemned to die by Pontius Pilate. And we travel the Via Dolorosa, and it's a zigzag path. And we end up over here at the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. And you can see the dotted line to the different things. And interestingly enough, all of the stations are in Roman numerals. Of course, Jesus was crucified during the Roman time. This is a sign for the Via Dolorosa. It's both in English, Arabic, and Israeli. This is where we go for the first Station of the Cross. Jesus is condemned to die. It's the location of the Praetorium of Pilate. That's the kind of like the place where he was holding court. Jesus is made to bear his cross at the second station. At the third station, Jesus falls for the first time. And one of the things I'd like to say, that while we're walking these stations, this is all in the Muslim part of Old Jerusalem. This is not the Christian part or anybody else's. This is all Muslim. And they're out there selling their wares and goods. They all want us to buy it. I don't know, how many of you have been to Mexico? Okay, well, or maybe some Italian streets or stuff. Well, these people are out there. They're hawking their wares, and they want your attention. And we were told to walk in silence, to meditate. And at each place, we were spoken to about what was going on here and what was happening. But all the time, there's this cacophony of people trying to get us to buy their stuff. And all I could think of is, this is exactly the way it was when Jesus was carrying his cross through here. It would have been no different. People would have been out there doing their daily work, their business. They could have cared less about this poor guy schlepping his cross through Jerusalem. So this is the third station. The fourth station, Jesus meets his mother. Now, for some reason, somebody came along and put red paint there. That red paint is not there. They probably cleaned it up, but that was there when I was there, so hence it's in the picture. But this is Mary meeting his mother. This is the fifth station. This is Simon helps Jesus carry his cross. None of these stations are anything really terribly impressive. It's just a place along the street, some of them. This one actually had an altar and stuff like this. I just happen to like that particular part of it because it was kind of neat. Let's see, this is Veronica wipes Jesus' face. This is her chapel, and it was probably her home. Jesus falls for a second time. You can see the artwork above the altar there, Jesus falling. Jesus meets the women of Jerusalem. You notice up here on the left, there's the Roman numeral, Every station has this kind of a plaque up there, and it's a fairly good-sized plaque. It's probably a foot across. So you can tell, this is not very big, not very impressive. It's just a little thing on a ledge on a rock on the side of some building. But he's meeting the women. You can see the women there. There's women, and that's Jesus in the center. Jesus falls for the third time. It's just a little plaque up here. They have several crosses out here and a little sign up there. And this is just outside the church. It's down a little alleyway. And this is the church up here on the upper left-hand corner. That's the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. And we'll talk about that in a minute. This is another station. Jesus is nailed to the cross. Wait a minute. Jesus is just outside, stripped, outside the Holy Sepulchre. And this is Jesus, this is 11. This is Jesus nailed to the cross. This is Jesus dies on the cross. Again, this is a Greek chapel. Hence, it's pretty ornate, just kind of like the chapel in Bethlehem is Greek. This is Greek. And again, they have this little hole here. You can stick your hand down through it, and you can touch the bedrock on which Jesus' cross was implanted. I don't know how they did it, but that's how it is. And I will show you in a little while how the Holy Sepulchre was built on all of these rocks and stuff. It's quite amazing. This is a slab of stone, and Jesus is taken down from the cross, and this is called the stone of anointing. It's a fairly old slab of stone, and apparently Jesus was laid out on it, and he was anointed with oils and wrapped up and everything like this. And then Jesus was taken a short distance, and he was put in this thing. This thing has a cave inside it. And the entrance to that cave is just over here on the left. You can walk in, and you can't see the entrance because it's over this way going in. But it's very low. You almost have to crawl in. I think we crawled in, didn't we? No? All right, it's pretty low. I guess you could stoop down and get in, but inside here is the cave. It is really tight, and they only allowed like 4 people at a time to get in, and 2 inside where the cave is, and 2 waiting. And you kind of go in, you say prayer, and you come right out. And this is one of the other places we ran into our very pushy Nigerian pilgrims. When we were in there, this guy was in a hurry to get into the inner part where the cave is, and he pushed pushed Susan out of the way and told her to move, and it was quite a rude thing to happen in that place, of all places. The Holy Sepulchre. This is the burial. Sepulchre means burial place for Jesus. And it's a church, and it's owned and operated by not 2 or 3, but 5 different Christian denominations, each having a part of the building. This is the outside. This is the exterior of the building, and it's a big, long, rambling place. Half of it, parts of it are underground here. This is actually the top of the chapel of St. Helena, which was built in 326 AD. So, it's interesting. The first building was a Roman temple in this place. And then The second building was built in 326 AD with St. Helena, and she found out from the Christian Palestinians there where the actual true cross was, and she was in search of that. So it's kind of interesting. It's probably pretty close to where Jesus died. And the church of St. Helena was destroyed in 614 AD. These Muslims came in and got rid of a lot of stuff in 614 AD. And then in 746, an earthquake damaged whatever was left. In 1048, the Christians, the Christian and Muslim had a truce, and the Holy Sepulchre was rebuilt. The Crusaders rebuilt the St. Helena Chapel in a cistern, which is right underneath this thing right here. And this side here, these are the two domes of the Holy Sepulchre. Down here is where St. Helena's Chapel is. This gray here is the rock. So, and the orange and yellow stuff here that's with the stripes, that's what used to be rock that has been removed. So the only rock that's left is part of the cave here, and then this little piece that rises up so you can touch it for where Jesus was crucified. So it's kind of interesting that this is all ground floor and stuff like that in the Holy Sepulchre. This is a bas-relief of Jesus in there. This is a bas-relief of Mary in there. This is a well art in the Holy Scripture, the Sepulchre. And this is a raised panel of a cross. And this is a mosaic of showing Jesus' body being prepared after his death, opposite the stone of anointing. So the stone of anointing, that slab of rock, was right near this spot. And this is the floor plan of the Holy Sepulchre. And I'll just point out a few places. All right. This little place here is Calvary. This is where you can touch the rock. You walk in here. And this gray part is part of the Greek churches. Or not gray, green. All of the green is Greek. All right, the other one is the stone of anointing, which is, let's see, where is that? Yeah, right there. This B right here, stone of anointing. So that's where he died. That's where he was put on the slab, stone. And then right up here, this is the entrance to the cave, modern cave. And this is the actual cave itself, that 14 right there. And then all the way down here is St. Helena's Chapel that was rebuilt by the Crusaders. This is St. Helena's Chapel's altar. This is the ancient mosaic floor that was there. This is probably from the 500s. This is a metal cross. It could be Crusader, but it's a metal cross in there. And what I found so interesting, this is part of the circular wall or walkway down into St. Helena's Chapel. This is a stone wall. This is part of the stone that the Holy Sepulchre is built around and around. And these are all etched in here by Crusaders. 1,000 years old. So from the Holy Sepulchre, we go to the St. Antonia fortress. This is pavement, and this is down on the stone. This is where Pilate's Praetorium probably was, and the beginning of the Via Dolorosa. And this pavement right here, this is in the stone here, are etched Roman games in the floor. There's a square one here, there's a round one here. I have no idea what they played. From there we go to the pools of Bethsaida. This is part of Jesus healing a paralyzed man here in John 5:15 through 18. Bethsaida means house of mercy or grace. It was a bathing pool with 5 porches. It was actually started being built in the 8th century BC. A dam was built there for a reservoir 40 feet deep. In 200 BC, a reservoir was enclosed, had a building over it. In 1 BC, the Roman baths were put in. The 5th century AD, the Byzantine church was built around it, called the Church of the Lame Man. And then a 12th century AD, a Crusader church was built there. Obviously, all in ruins. Fun part. We went shopping in Old Jerusalem. What a surprise that was for me, too. For all of us, actually. The streets were very narrow, as you can see. You can hardly get maybe 3 people wide. It was, in many places, it was covered. There's an arch in it there, right up here. And they're just selling all kind of junk in here. All kinds of stuff. You know, you name it, they were selling it. But I loved watching the people and taking pictures of them. There were numerous bazaars everywhere, and each one with its own merchant and merchandise. The markets in the old city are mostly located in the Muslim part on these narrow streets. And you got to remember, this is on rock everywhere and hilly and uneven, and so lots of these streets had stairs in them and stuff like this. And it's a mixture of different cultures and religions, means that they're apt to find Christian souvenirs and Muslim prayer rugs sitting on the shelf along with Hanukkah menorahs and Sabbath candelabra, all together, mixed together. And a lot of them had food and spices vendors. This, by the way, this is the streets with the many steps and stuff in it, you can see. This guy was selling bread. Everything is out in the open. Nothing is in pristine places like the Fresh Market or Publix or Kroger or anything like that. It's all out in the open. And this is what I found fascinating. There were all these fairly good-sized spice markets. And they had these bowls, and some of them had their signs were in Arabic and English. These ones are in English. And I went to one of the spice markets, and they had frankincense, incense, and I saw a sign that said frankincense, and I said, oh, how much? They got myrrh, and I looked around. Sure enough, there was the myrrh over there. I kept on looking. And the guy said to me, it was the salesperson there, he says, what are you looking for? Can I help you? I said, well, yeah, I see the frankincense over there and the myrrh, but I don't see any gold. And without missing a beat, he said, it's in your pocket. And that's why I knew I didn't need to be afraid to go over there. Everybody who goes over there is bringing precious money. And it didn't matter if you're Jew or Muslim or Christian or nothing at all, they want that. So, I told you I'd tell you why it was safe over there. But anyway, I love that. In your pocket. So, some other sites in Old Jerusalem. This is the cross on top of the Holy Sepulchre. This is the symbol of a Muslim religion on top of a mosque. Again, the bird. He was following me everywhere.
Scotty, that is a raven, and it represents death or something coming that is going to be the end.
Okay, well, he was appropriate there then, maybe. But he was also on top of Peter's thing. This is part of the old wall. This is a tower on the old city wall. The first city wall around Old Jerusalem was built in 1400 BC. The second one was built in 1000 BC. That was David's wall, which was destroyed in 587 BC by the Babylonians. And the third wall was in 400 BC, and that was built by Ezra and Nehemiah. And they added on to many times since then, and it's been destroyed by earthquakes in 1033 AD. In 1099, the Crusaders strengthened the wall, and in 1187, Saladin the Great added on to the wall, and then he decided, maybe not, and he tore them all down because he feared the Crusaders might come back and use them. So these walls are from the 1500s. Sultan Suleiman the Magnificent built them, and these are the existing walls, and they're not exactly where the original walls were built, but they house and enclose what is now considered Old Jerusalem. The next two photos are two artistic photos I took. This is the Umar Mosque minaret. The Umar Mosque is right next to the Holy Sepulchre. And it's where Caliph Omar prayed in 637 AD after the Muslim captured Jerusalem. The current mosque was built in 1193 to commemorate that prayer. And this is a second image of that mosque that I decided to, create. Okay, good news. I'm almost done. All right, this is the last of our time in Jerusalem. And got to figure out which end I'm working with here. This is the West Bank right here. This area right here is considered the West Bank. This was taken over during the Six-Day War in 1967. This area here was taken. All of Sinai was taken as Gaza. And this up here is the Golan Heights. So Israel claims and retains this area here and this area here. They gave back to Egypt the Sinai Peninsula, and I don't think any Israeli would dare tread in the Gaza Strip right now. This is a real hotbed of lots of rockets going into Tel Aviv area. Tel Aviv is up here on the coast. So, that's where it is today. But anyway, and right here is where Jerusalem is. Oh, excuse me, right here is where Jerusalem is. And we travel down here to Jericho and the Dead Sea area. And on the way, we passed many Bedouin homesteads here. This is one Bedouin homestead. They're worse than third world homes. They're barely livable. But this is where they live, and they've been, again, living for thousands of years. Up on top here, up on the right-hand side, there's some kind of a Jewish thing going on. I don't know what it is. Looks like kind of a guard tower up there and stuff. So, but anyway, these particular Bedouins were herding camel, and you can see the Bedouin sitting down below here. He's got a camel, the camels are up there, and they're just sort of eating on whatever they can get. And we go to Qumran. Qumran is right on the edge of the Dead Sea, and there's where the caves are. And this was settled in about 100 BC, maybe, and it was settled by the Essenes and lasted until 73 AD, so maybe 173 years they lived there. And it was destroyed by the Romans in 73 AD. Some believe that John the Baptist might have joined the Essene group, which was a water baptizing religious community. They were like monks and nuns living together. This place is best known for finding the Dead Sea Scrolls up in caves. These caves you didn't get to very easily. You had to climb all the way up here. Back in, I think it's 47, year I was born, I think. Two Bedouin boys were just playing around and they were throwing rocks up into the caves when they heard this crash sound. Well, like any good Bedouin boy, he managed to get up there. I don't know how, but managed to get up there, and that's when they found the Dead Sea Scrolls and these potteries. And of course, what they did was they started selling this stuff off willy-nilly, kind of as a tourist thing, to make a buck here and there, God forbid. But anyway, word soon got out, and most of the stuff is now in the hands of the Israelis. This is what the Dead Sea Scrolls would have been kept in. This is not one of the actual caves. This is just a replica of that. This guy here, this is a Palestinian local. This guy was right there outside of Qumran, and he was willing to give you a camel ride if you wanted a camel ride. I thought he was just fabulously interesting looking. And that was his camel. Needless to say, we did not ride his camel. But we did go on right there to the Dead Sea. The Dead Sea is actually the lowest place on the earth. It's 1,410, almost 11 feet below sea level. The sea is called the Dead Sea because its high salinity prevents microscopic aquatic organisms such as fish and aquatic plants from living in it. It's 10 times saltier than the saltiest water in oceans. It's losing water to irrigation, which is of both concern to Jordan and Israel. And they've looked at all kinds of ways of maybe pumping water in from the Dead Sea, not the Dead Sea, the Red Sea over the mountains and stuff like that. The mountains in the background, by the way, is Jordan. You'll notice that all these people in the water, this guy's just floating right on the top of the water. Well, you can't swim in this water. You've got to float. We had the opportunity, we were told to bring our bathing suits with us on this pilgrimage, and we did. And we had the opportunity to get in this water. Well, you thought your water was cold. Well, let me tell you, this water was freezing cold to me anyway, and as slimy as they can get. Oh, God, I got in for 10 seconds. I thought, what the heck was I thinking? Joe got in, rubbed all kinds of mud all over himself and everything, and he just whooped it up, and he just had a grand time. Not me. I couldn't wait to get in. They had showers there, thank God. I couldn't wait to get in there and get a nice hot shower and get all that slimy salt off me. But you do float. We went to Jericho after that, which is right just north of the Dead Sea, where the the Jordan River goes into the Dead Sea. The West Bank, Jericho. It's a Palestinian city today, not this part of it, but there's a new city, and it's Palestinian in the Jordan Valley. And the earliest transient settlement dates back to 10,000 BC. Around, and they lived around a spring. They would come at a certain time of the year, and then they'd move on, and then they'd come back again that same time of the year. The first permanent settlement dates back to 9,500 to 9,000 BC. There's a Tel Sultan dig there going on now. That's what you're looking at. The community foundation dates back to 8,000 BC. So you're looking at stuff that was put there 10,000 years ago. Imagine that. And between 7,200 and 5,850 BC, they domesticated sheep, and they're still herding sheep there. Those are goats. And by the way, you can see as we were driving in, that's what we were looking at. It's a mixture of, Bedouin tents and whatever, and modern buildings. The Battle of Jericho takes place at around 1,530 BC, and Jericho's walls actually did come down. How they came down, that's up to you to decide, whether it's biblically or otherwise, but there is evidence that the walls did actually come down, and sometime around that time. The city came back from its extensive, as an extensive town, moving slightly from the original site. Jesus healed the blind beggar here. Zacchaeus repents here. The Good Samaritan parable takes place on the road between Jericho and Jerusalem. And we got to ride on camels in Jericho. And guess who was on top of the camel? That's my lovely bride.
Was it fun? Not the way you describe it, huh?
On the way back to Jerusalem, before we leave the holy Israel, when we get back, we're going back, and there was a surprise visit to this place. Actually, we don't go to this place. We are on a hillock overlooking this place. There's this deep gorge and valley between us and this place. And this place is on the side of another hill. This is St. George's Monastery. It's a Byzantine monastery community in the Judean desert. It's located at the Wadi Quelt. It's between Jerusalem and Jericho along the very old and little used road between the two places. So the parable of the Good Samaritan took place somewhere near this place. I think that's kind of neat. And it's named after the original monastery was built in the 5th century by 6 monks, supposedly over the grave of Elijah. And it's named after a monk from Cyprus named Georgius, who lived there in the 6th century, the 500s. Over time, the buildings were destroyed and rebuilt. The buildings we see here today are from the late 1800s, constructed by the Greek Orthodox Church. How they did that, I have no idea, but it's just fascinating to me. And that's the last of the pictures, but going home, we returned to Amman, Jordan. We flew in there, we got to fly out. So we go into Amman, Jordan, and we cross what's called the Allenby Bridge for the Israelis. And the same bridge is called the King Hussein Bridge by the Jordanians. You know, just depends, you know, which end you're on, I guess. And this border crossing was relatively easy. Apparently, going from Israel to Jordan, the Jordanians aren't quite as uptight and anxious as the Israelis are if you're coming from Jordan into their country. So it was an easy crossing. And we stay in a very modern hotel in Amman, Jordan, and it was heavily fortified. And when we got there, I mean, there are you know, sandbags and everything on the outside, and all of this security, this thing where you're like you're going through the airport, your bags go through this thing, you go through this checkpoint, and you're X-rayed and all like that. And I mean, this is just to go into the hotel. If you went out, you had to go through this whole thing all over again. So, and we did, you know, that's what you do. And the next day, we are flying out of Amman, Jordan to Paris, France, and of course from Paris home. And we're leaving early in the morning. And by the way, the fortressing of the hotel, and it wasn't just this one, it was all of them, is because back in 2007, guess what our GIs are doing? They are fighting a war in Iraq. And they come to Amman, Jordan for R&R to these hotels. So they have to have high security. They didn't do that just for us pilgrims, believe me. But the next morning, we have to get up at 3 in the morning and leave by 4 in the morning on the bus. And as the bus is going along, there is a car in front of us with lights going. There's a vehicle behind us with their lights going. And then there's this Mercedes-Benz shadowing us on the side all the way to the airport. Talk about being unnerved. I guess we didn't spend enough money in Amman, Jordan, or what, but you know, there was a feeling of uncomfortableness as we were driving, but they were going to be sure we got on that plane safe and secure, and home we went. And that's the end. So you have been to the Holy Lands then and now. And I'm sure some of it is surprising to you. It certainly was to us. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody, for coming tonight. I'd like to remind you that the next he will do the Roman trial of Jesus Christ. So I hope you'll all come and spread the word to anybody who you think might be interested in hearing this presentation. And we'll have our light supper again at 6 o'clock. And for those who would like to come just for the presentation, if you're here by 6:30, we normally start at 6:45. But thank you again tonight for coming, and thank you so much, Scotty.
And thank you for everybody's assistance to get this thing going.